Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Lil Will Learning Company. So the topic of this video is the importance of reading fluency, and it's a really important part of making students successful readers. Now, what I mean by reading fluency is this. If you can imagine a classroom right now, and in that classroom you have a student who is struggling to read, and specifically, it's a student who can decode words. So they can actually identify the sounds of the word and they can read the word itself. So they can decode on their own, but they struggle to read with a good pace or with any emotion or change in tone, or it's rather monotone in the way they read, and it's very slow, almost labored. There's always a pause after nearly every single word. When reading is that slowed down, they begin that no matter what, they're going to lose the meaning of the text they're reading. And when they're taking that long to decode everything or to read it with any automaticity, the problem is comprehension suffers in the end. That's what makes fluency so important. So, one of the big reasons is that reading there's a misconception for what reading is. They think it's just one skill, but it's really multiple skills that are layered on top of each other. And those four skills really come down to first, there's phonics, which is decoding the letters, letter sounds, blending those sounds together. Phonics is really important, and that decoding is the first step. But next, after that, comes fluency, which is now that you can decode, how quickly can you decode? Can you do it with automaticity? Then after that, there's the knowledge of vocabulary. Here's what these words mean. And then now that you know what words mean and you can read fluently and you can decode and kind of as easy as you can breathe, then you have comprehension. And even comprehension is really multiple skills or practices that are kind of rolled up into reading comprehension. But those main four pillars of reading, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and then reading comprehension, those four skills are all working together to create one really good reader. So, the importance of reading fluency. But the thing is, when I say fluency, there's also probably a misconception behind that. So, to make it easier, I'll break it down into three skills. Reading fluency first comes from accuracy. Do they even read the word correctly? Are they decoding it correctly? That's really important. But the next one is automaticity. Now that they can decode and read it accurately, but can they do it so quickly and so easily that really there's not even that much effort or brain power really needed to do it? That automaticity makes it really fluid and really it break I shouldn't say that. It really makes it fluid and easy enough so that when they do read, their brain is kind of freed up for other tasks, such as what does this word mean and what is the author saying when it comes to reading comprehension. So you do need automaticity with fluency. And then the last one is something called prosody. And prosody means, are they reading basically how someone talks to another person? Is there a rhythm to how they speak? Do they convey emotions, whether it's happiness or sadness or frustration? And do they not pause for 2 seconds after every single word or only speak in a monotone way when they're speaking? It's also respecting the commas and the periods and the question marks and the exclamation points within reading as well. So you do need prosody, which is what makes the written word sound like something spoken between friends or something you would hear in a performance, essentially. So this is one of the major problems when it comes to curriculum, which is that most curriculum maybe focus very heavily on phonics, but then kind of shorthand or give short shrift to fluency and then kind of jump right into comprehension, maybe jump into some vocabulary as well. And I've kind of seen the opposite, whereas they don't really give any focus on phonics and kind of jump right into fluency. But for the sake of this video, I want to focus on the importance of fluency because I've kind of seen that more recently. And there is a swing back to the importance of phonics, but fluency does have a place in developing good readers, and it shouldn't be completely ignored. And if anything, if you can combine the two, where you have good phonics instruction for reading, and then if you can tie the progression of which they've learned phonics into their reading fluency practice, that is a very powerful curriculum to help students learn to read well. So here's why fluency matters so much. It's a little bit of brain science, but ultimately it kind of goes back to what I was referring to earlier with automaticity, which is that reading does take working memory. And if that brain and that working memory is focused so much on decoding and trying to read with some semblance of speed and fluidity, well then it leaves no room at all for comprehension or even knowledge. Another way to kind of think of it is you want the brain to read a word and understand it instantly, which then frees your brain up to start reading not just one word at a time, but start to read in groups or in phrases. Really good readers, when they read something, they don't look at one word at a time. They look at a group of words together, like 3 to 4 to 5 words, and that's a phrase, and they say the phrase. They look at the next set of words, and they say the next phrase. And then when you can start basically doing that, it frees your brain up more to start holding big ideas for longer, which is basically comprehension, so that when they're reading something, they can actually understand it. But the brain needs to be freed up to do that. And that's ultimately what fluency is doing, is it makes to a point where it's accurate, it is becoming automatic where they can instantly see that word, and it frees them up to start grouping words together and then start reading with that prosody, that expression, that the important tone and pitch and speed variation so that it sounds like a conversation. It sounds like something performed on the theater. And then with this fluency, after students have really understood phonics, fluency still even helps into, let's say, grades 3, 4, 5, 6, even a little bit of 7 and 8 in middle school. And there's nothing wrong with working on some fluency there. You just kind of increase difficulty. So a good place to start progressing from phonics would be basically word study and morphology, knowing that basically words are constructed a certain way. So to know the prefixes of words, the suffixes of words, the root words, and like word families are basically the morphology of it, how certain words are kind of grouped together. And if you can start to implement that into their reading fluency, that helps a lot as well. So ultimately, what would be best for helping students with their fluency? And it's really simple. And the nice thing about fluency is it can be done for a very little amount of time, but on a daily practice, so to speak. And what it is just repeated readings of a text out loud over and over and over. So you take a piece of text. It could be for a student who's a first grader who's still learning their phonics. It could be some really simple sentences to read, but they read it out loud day 1. They read it out loud again by day 2. They read it out loud again by day 3. But now we time them to see how many words per minute they're reading. And every single time they read it, you want to start to encourage them, okay, that was the first time you read it, but now start grouping these words together. So don't just say, the cat sat on the mat. You say, the cat sat on the mat. You encourage to start grouping these words and phrases together. And then as they read it more, now you start to add expression. Are they sad? Are they happy? That prosody really does matter, but it's just repeated readings over and over and over and reading out loud, saying them out loud. That's what helps with fluency. But there's one fourth one as well. I forgot to mention. There's one fourth one as well, and that's actually hearing adults model the reading out loud. If they can hear and see an adult reading it out loud, that modeling, it really does help them with the expression and the prosody part of it. That makes a big difference as well. How long should this daily practice occur? Honestly, like 5 to 10 minutes per day. And in fact, the more improvement they have with their reading fluency is probably closer to 5 minutes, depending on how long the passage is that they're reading. But if they can consistently do that on a daily basis, even maybe not even daily, at least 3 days a week of just reading the same passage out loud and just improving on the the grouping of the words, and then improving on the expression of how they say it, that really helps with fluency a lot. The most important thing I want to leave everyone with, which is the reason why reading fluency is just so important, is that it really frees up the reader to focus on ideas now. Their brain is not so focused on decoding and how should I group these words together or what's the emotion behind this. Once it becomes automatic and it just comes to them naturally and they can just start to group these words naturally together. Now it frees up the brain to try to understand what does this word mean? What is this story even talking about? It frees the brain up to actually comprehend. And that's why fluency is so important. And it's important not to skip it when we're teaching students how to read well. And we can look at it as maybe that's just for reading or maybe just for literature, but it's beyond that. It helps them in science. It helps them in history. Eventually, it will help them in math when they start reading math word problems. So this is important to really an entire academic foundation for students. So to close with, fluency, it's really important. Shouldn't skip it, and we can improve students' reading just with daily practice and simple daily practice. I hope this video helped you out. Please like and subscribe, and if you're looking for tutoring, mentoring, personalized curriculum, year-long curriculum, or any educational material such as for math word problems, or for phonics, come check us out at the Lil Will Learning Company. You can find our stuff at our website and some of our books also on Amazon Kindle. Until next time, take care.